of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country. Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly-past. A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day, all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good evening to you on this magnificent early summer evening. Welcome to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney, back from Texas, and on your show tonight. Top story, the FA has announced that transgender women will no longer be allowed to play in women's football as of June the 1st. And this comes, of course, as London's Hampstead Ladies Pond fails to ban trans women. Also on the show tonight, the firearms officer who was cleared of killing gangster Chris Cabba will now face a misconduct hearing. And counter-terror police will investigate Irish hip-hop act Kneecap, who have been heavily and broadly criticised for allegedly telling crowds to kill your local MP. Footage also emerged appearing to show a member of the trio shouting, "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah."
To Lancaster, the mightiest aerial engine of destruction ever conceived and built.
It's one of the most recognisable sights of British aviation, and at the International Bomber...
Doesn't that get the blood stirring? And a very happy May Day to you. It also marks the start of the official VE Day commemorations on a day where 50,000 children have contacted written letters to veterans through VE email. Inspiring story. Well, to show us the hottest start to May on record. What have you been up to today? Anything sizzling? Get in touch. We've got a jam-packed hour for you. But first, it's time for your news headlines.
Thanks, Martin. Good evening to you. Our top stories. Downing Street says biology matters following the FA's decision to ban transgender women from playing women's football in England from next season. It follows a similar move by the Scottish FA this week after a Supreme Court ruling in April found a female is defined by biological sex. The FA says it's always been ready to alter its guidelines if there's a material change in the law. English cricket is set to join football in banning transgender women from its female competitions. Donald Trump's national security advisor Mike Waltz is understood to have left his post in the White House. Waltz is the first high-profile official to leave the administration since Trump took over in January. Waltz has been under increasing pressure since it was revealed he inadvertently added a journalist to a signal group in which sensitive military strikes in Yemen were shared. Waltz has said he took full responsibility for the leak. Well, Donald Trump has been speaking at the White House this evening. No mention of Waltz in a long and rambling speech, but other key administration figures who were on that leaked group chat, including the Defence Secretary and the Secretary of State, were in attendance. Harrods has been hit by a cyber attack just days after Marks & Spencer and Co-op were targeted. The luxury department store is understood to have been forced to shut down some of its systems to fend off attempts to gain unauthorised access. Well, Harrods says its website and all stores are continuing to operate, but it does follow similar incidents in recent days linked to the hacking collective Scattered Spider. Counter-terrorist officers at the Met Police have opened an investigation into the Irish rapper's Kneecap. They've had several concerts cancelled after footage emerged that appears to show band members calling for the death of MPs and also one of its members shouting "Up Hamas" and "Up Hezbollah." It is a crime to express support for those banned groups in the UK. Well, Kneecap said in a statement earlier this week they rejected any suggestion that they would seek to incite violence against MPs. They say the videos have been taken out of context. A number of artists, including Fontaine's DC, Massive Attack, Pulp and Paul Weller, have signed a joint statement in support of Kneecap. And police are appealing for witnesses after 2 of their horses were attacked by a dog in London. It happened in Shepherd's Bush Green on Monday around midday. Now, the little dog repeatedly tried to bite the horses, while the owner struggled to get it under control. It was eventually stopped by members of the public. Well, thankfully, Yvonne and Snaffles, that's the horses, are recovering well at their stables. With just minor injuries, the officers were unharmed. And the record for the UK's warmest start to May has now been broken. At 28 degrees was recorded at Kew Gardens in southwest London earlier, but a provisional temperature of 29.1 has been recorded in Surrey. That is to be confirmed, though, later. The previous record was in Scotland on the 1st of May 1990. That was 27.4 degrees. The Met Office has also said the UK experienced the sunniest April since records began in 1910. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 8.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to news alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron, and welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, today, the Football Association, the FA, has announced that transgender women that's biological men, by the way, will no longer be able to play in women's football from June the 1st this year. Football's governing body stated that while its goal is to make football as inclusive as possible, its policy has always been subject to change in response to shifts in law or indeed in science. And the FA said it had updated its policy change in light of last month's Supreme Court ruling that legally defines a woman based on biological sex. Now, this follows another story, and that comes as London's Hampstead Heath Ladies Pond is facing backlash after failing to ban trans women despite that Supreme Court ruling. Well, Venice Allen is a feminist activist at the centre of a campaign to restore the pond as a single-sex space for women and was the first woman to be banned from the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association after objecting to biological men being granted access to the women's pond. And I'm now joined by that campaigner, Venice Allen. Venice, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. Let's start with Kenwood Ladies Pond before we discuss the Football Association's ruling today. What is it about the fact that trans women, biological men, want to swim in a women's pond that so upset you that you've lost your membership?
I mean, I think firstly, it's just a question of principle. So there are 3 ponds, swimming ponds on Hampstead Heath. One is for men, one is for women, and one is for both. And so firstly, it's just the principle. Why should men, or however you would describe them, male people, why should they swim in the women's pond? Secondly, it's a question of who are these men and, you know, what are they doing there? I've been there when there are these men in the pond. They the ones I've seen, they're always topless, showing that they're developing breasts. And me and many other women just find it really uncomfortable. And they're there.
And you complained about that.
Yeah.
As well as the trans women, biological men, displaying their bodies. Has anything else happened that's caused you or other members concern?
I think there has been at least one situation in the showers, because obviously there's only one shower block and it's all open, there's no cubicles. Same with the changing area, and I think there was one situation where a man was in there that made at least one woman feel uncomfortable, and I believe that in that instance the police were called, whereas the Pond Association deny that there's ever been any complaints. Whereas I haven't seen the police called, but I have seen women complain to the lifeguard because there's a man there.
And presumably, well, we know this has fallen on deaf ears. More than that, you've been ejected from the Pond Association yourself. Why? What are they so afraid of? I mean, it would seem to be a natural response for women to feel safe in a women's space.
Well, as you know, Martin, women are quite split on this. There's a lot of women like me who really don't like sharing intimate spaces with men, or, you know, however they identify, especially when they've got the whole male equipment. Especially in like an undressed kind of situation, like in a shower or communal changing room. Yeah. Sorry.
No. What I'm trying to get to the root cause of is clearly a number of the female members feel uncomfortable about this, and yet
some women just don't mind. And I think especially like in North London, I think there's a huge membership of the Ladies Pond, and not just the membership of the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association, but actually who go to the pond. So a lot of the younger women, not all of them, but a lot of the younger women are like, yeah, come into our space, you're an honorary woman. And they love to actually invite men into women's spaces as a kind of favour and to show how progressive they are. Whereas there's a lot of elderly women and middle-aged women there who really don't like it at all. Like my mother, for example, used to love swimming at the pond, but now once she heard in 2018 or 19, wherever it was, that they made it clear that trans women were welcome, she's never been back since.
Now, of course, those people and the trans people themselves would argue that trans women are women.
Exactly. Well, that's the problem. That's the whole crux of the debate. Are trans women women, or are they men, or are they something else that we haven't quite come up with a word for? But, you know, the Supreme Court said on April the 16th, in response to 4 Women Scotland's court case, the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, said no, a trans woman is a man.
And despite that, the City of London Corporation, which oversees the pond, has taken a different tack. They say they're going to follow the self-ID policy despite that Supreme Court ruling. And Venice, also, there are 28 NHS trusts within London which say they're going to do the same. A lot of people that came into this studio and sat where you are on that day, feminist campaigners who were victorious, or so they felt on that historical day, they felt this battle was over. They felt this was a historic moment, a tipping point, a turning point, and yet City of London Corporation, NHS trusts in London seem to not be listening to the Supreme Court. Why?
Well, because they're so ideologically driven, that this ideology of transgenderism has been in the heart of their institutions for several years now. And they're not going to just give up. And there's a whole industry of EDI who've pushed this narrative. When it comes to the Corporation of the City of London, you know, we know that ideologues are actually in charge of these decisions. There's a man who describes himself as non-binary and queer, who's actually also a Mason, you know, a member of the Masons. And he's the one who's guided this policy. So, honestly, Martin, did not surprise me one slightest bit that they are trying to fudge this.
OK, let's move on now, if we could, Venice, to the Football Association today. And also, it was Netball England and the Cricket Board of England and Wales expected to follow suit tomorrow. They've called time on trans women, biological men, being able to compete in football, in cricket and in netball. Do you see that as a victory?
Absolutely. It's like a house of cards, isn't it? Because these sporting associations were especially the FA, as far as I know, were very trans inclusive, and they wanted to push it as much as they could. But the Supreme Court ruling is clear, and they can't carry on allowing men to join in women's teams at any level of any sport, because there's so many reasons why that shouldn't happen.
And do you think a big part of the public awakening on this was moments like the Olympics? Like when we saw biological women being battered, being absolutely pummeled by biological men, by trans women, people can see that's not fair. People can see that with their own eyes. This is cruelty. And do you think that those moments were important in the public just saying, this is nonsense?
Absolutely. I think when I started campaigning, a lot of what we were trying to warn people was hypothetical. And people were like, no, that will never happen. But when it actually happens in front of your eyes, that you have two male boxers in different weight classes getting medals for punching women in the face, I think most people think that's disgusting.
Now, Venice, it's important to say, of course, everybody is entitled to a peaceful, prosperous life, however they choose to lead it. And, of course, trans people are still protected by the Equality Act. Nobody is encouraging the persecution of others. But to you, this is a case of, well, respecting women's space, respecting women's feelings, but also obeying the law. Supreme Court found 100%. In favour of your opinion.
Sorry?
The Supreme Court found in favour of your opinion. The FA is towing the line now.
It's as simple as that. So organisations like City of London and the NHS Trust, where it's really deep into these institutions, they will end up with the right policy. But how much do we need to do in terms of campaigning and also lawfare? Once they see that they're going to lose a lot of money, it's over.
Do you think that the FA moment today, Netball England, the cricket board moment, do you think we are starting to see an awakening, a returning of common sense, a Supreme Court ruling? We heard Donald Trump today give a press conference where he was saying this is going to be kicked out of the military, the trans ideology, kicked out of schools, and surgery will be made illegal. He called it child abuse in America, kids, particularly if it's on the taxpayer's dollar. Do you think we're approaching that moment in the UK, or moments like the Kenwood Ladies Pond Association and the NHS trusts in London? Does that give you pause for thought?
I mean, I think Trump's got a slightly different angle to what's happening in America is slightly different to what's happening here in the UK. But I mean, I can't see that there's anywhere that they can go with this. There's talk of, like, the European Court of Human Rights, but I don't think they've got a chance. I think, it will take time. It's not going to be easy, but I think we need to change the culture. It's not just about laws. It's also about making children who feel that they may be trans, making them realise that the problem is not them. The problem is gender, is the society is the problem, not their own bodies.
And Venice Allen, campaigners such as Sharon Davis, MBE, we've had on this channel a lot, Martina Navratilova, they've campaigned on this for years, and it's come at great personal and professional damage to their reputation. What about yourself? Have you been getting a lot of stick over your position? Oh, yeah, definitely. When I first started campaigning in 2017, it was a really hostile environment, especially for someone like me, as a member of the Labour Party, yeah. So you think this has turned a corner. Venice Allen, thank you very much for joining us on GBN Tonight. Appreciate your company. Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure, thank you. Now, a spokesman for the City of London Corporation told GB News this. In line with many other affected organisations, we are carefully considering the judgment and awaiting statutory guidance from the EHRC, which, by law, service providers must take into account. It is completely false to suggest that the City Corporation is not compliant with existing UK law. We take our obligations very seriously, and a carefully considered decision in this complex matter will be taken in due course. We remain committed to providing a safe and respectful environment for all. So thank you very much, and thank you once again to you, Venice Allen, for joining us on the show. Now, coming up next, the Met's counter-terrorism unit have confirmed that the Irish band, the rap trio Kneecap, are now officially under investigation. Is this an attack on their freedom of speech, or should this be taken very, very seriously? In fact, let's go further. Should Kneecap be in jail? That's next.
Today, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections. And one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues
that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. tonight.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Say that Mia Collins joins us in the studio now. Morning, Mia. Really good to meet you. And what's it like for you watching that experience back?
Lots of fond memories. I loved my time in the process, and you know, TV shopping was definitely one of the big highlights for me. I loved it.
Was it really?
Genuinely, I really enjoyed it.
Because I wonder how much of these challenges and tasks do you come away from thinking, oh, that was awful?
For me personally, there weren't many occasions where I thought, oh God, you know, what I've been able to do now is look back on all 10 episodes, and I'm actually really happy with my performance, so no regrets.
You're consistently strong.
Thank you.
That's why I was so shocked when you went out as number 6. I honestly thought you'd make it through to the final, but it was just that one mistake, wasn't it?
It was the wrong decision at the wrong time. Had it been another task, maybe I would have survived it through, but, you know, it's so difficult to get to that final 5, and Jordan and Anissa are really strong candidates, so I think I just drew the short straw.
I mean, did you go into it thinking this would help you as a business person, or is it a door to get into media, or I mean, what was the point of going on?
I think if you look at the kind of the general age of candidates nowadays, it's a younger audience, and I've grown up watching the show. So from my perspective, I'd always just grown up watching it, thinking, God, I really do think I could do that. I am in the midst of prep for my bodybuilding competitions, so my time is very centred around training and trying to get as much content and insight into that as much as I can. I think bodybuilding is one of those sports that not many people know all too much about, and I think there's a few misconceptions of it. So if I can educate people and bring correct information about the sport through means that I enjoy, then so be it. And whatever comes of it, comes of it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dorby, on this beautiful early summer's evening. Now, the Metropolitan Police's counter-terrorism unit have confirmed today that the Irish band, the rap trio Kneecap, are now officially under investigation. Now, this comes following heavy criticism over claims that they call for members of Parliament to be killed. Well, joining us now to discuss this in the studio is the Director of Policy at the Counter-Extremism Group, Tom Wilson. Tom, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. Let's just go through some of the stuff that they allegedly said in 2 videos, one dating back to 2023. They said the only Tory is a dead Tory. They then said one of the band members in 2024, in another clip, kill your local MP. And another draped in a Hezbollah flag allegedly shouted, up Hamas, up Hezbollah, both of which are prescribed terrorist organisations. I don't need to tell you that, but could you tell me, in terms of reaching the threshold of breaking the free speech laws in Britain, in terms of breaking the law, do you think that Kneecap have breached that, and do you think they should be prosecuted?
I think if what they said is accurate, and I mean, I have watched the video footage of them saying this, then absolutely they've called for support for a prescribed organisation. They've made it clear, I think, in saying that they are supportive of that organisation. And I think they would probably reach the threshold for inviting support from other people to that organisation. In terms of the MPs, it seems very clear, if you're giving an instruction in the way in which they did, that you are inciting violence against our political representatives, and that violence in such a cause would be considered terrorism. So to me, it seems quite clear that terrorism legislation should be being looked at here.
OK. Now, of course, the ACT, Kneecap themselves are pushing back against this. We'll read a statement from them shortly. But could I first get your reaction to Katie Amos? Of course, this is no laughing matter. Politically motivated murders and killings of parliamentarians have happened. Katie Amos, of course, the daughter of Sir David Amos, she told BBC's Good Morning also, it is just beyond belief that human beings would speak like that in this day and age. It is extremely dangerous. And that is back to your notion of incitement, siding or seeming to side allegedly with Hamas and Hezbollah at the same time as saying the only Tory is a dead Tory. You know, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to work out that an Islamist killed Sir David Amos, a Tory MP. And that is why people like Katie Amos are very, very concerned.
That's right. We have seen terrorists target our MPs and murder them. Also, what they seem to be saying is they seem to be inciting against people purely based on what political party they support. This seems to go beyond MPs. Well, that sounds to me a lot like fascism. That is how fascists operate. The idea that if somebody supports a political party they don't agree with, then the way to deal with that is to kill them rather than to argue and debate them. These people might present themselves as progressive leftists, but to me, this is the politics of fascism being expressed through music.
OK, I think at this point, Tom Wilson, it's pertinent we read out a statement from Kneecap, who told us this: let us be unequivocal. We do not and have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah. We condemn all attacks on civilians, always. It is never OK. We know this more than anyone, given our nation's history. And we also reject any suggestion that we would seek to incite violence against any MP or individual, ever. An extract of footage deliberately taken out of all context is now being exploited and weaponised as if it were a call to action. To the Amos and the Cox families, we send our heartfelt apologies. We never intended to cause you hurt. Can I just pick up on that, Tom Wilson? You know, rock and roll. You know, they spoke out the way they did, allegedly. There's video evidence. And yet at the first time they've been called out, they've done a grovelling apology. There's freedom of speech. Is that a defence in the spirit of artistic licence? In your defence, are they allowed to be, I don't know, different from the rest of us because they're in a rap act which is known for being outspoken and known for being political?
But the law doesn't think so. I mean, if you want to disagree with the law and have a debate about changing our legislation to make our counter-terrorism laws weaker, then that's a separate debate. But they're there for a good reason, which is to stop incitement, to stop radicalisation, to stop people from being able to encourage others to commit acts of terrorism. They've argued that what they said, and they don't seem to be denying that they said it, they're merely arguing that it was taken out of context. I think those videos should be played in court so people can see what context we're talking about. I mean, you can watch the full clips. I think more generally, you have to ask, what context is it that makes it OK to praise and encourage support for terrorist organisations? What context is it that says that it's OK to call for people to go and kill their local MP? I didn't see any context to that.
What's been telling as well, Tom, is there's been a font of support for the acts from within the establishment of the music industry. We'll come on to some statements in a minute. But let's not forget that Lucy Connolly, of course, was jailed for a Facebook post following the Southport riots. The notion that free speech is absolute is for the birds. We already have precedent of it being a jailable offence to cross that threshold. And if action isn't taken in this case, Tom Wilson, do you think that will resurrect such talk of two-tier policing and two-tier justice in the United Kingdom?
Well, I think for those people who are coming out, such as these artists, to defend what's happened here, I would ask if they had have said the same things about Islamic State or Al-Qaeda or a neo-Nazi group, would these musicians be coming out to defend them? I don't think so. And we've seen in this country the atrocities committed by those organisations. And Hamas committed exactly the same atrocities on a much larger scale against Israeli people, committed acts of rape and murder. Do these artists feel that that's less serious? Do they feel that when an organisation that kills people just because they're Jewish, that shouldn't be treated as seriously as an organisation like Islamic State? That's what I would put back to these artists. OK, let's read out some of those statements now, if we could, Tom, because the following statement has been signed in support of Kneecap from various artists, and it says this: this past week has seen a clear, concerted attempt to censor
and ultimately deplatform the band Kneecap. In a democracy, no political figures or political parties should have the right to dictate who does and does not play at music festivals or gigs that will be enjoyed by thousands of people. The question of agreeing with Kneecap's political views is irrelevant. It is in the key interest of every artist that all creative expression be protected in a society that values culture, and that this interference campaign is condemned and ridiculed. Now, here are the supporting artists. There's a long list there from Annie Mac, Bicep, Bob Villan, Christy Moore. You can see the list on screen yourself there. And it also includes some big acts, such as the Pogues and the Mary Wallopers, another Irish folk act, Thin Lizzy, Sleaford Mods. A lot of those acts there, by the way, Tom Wilson, are known as being left-wing, are known as being ostensibly pro-Palestine. Could I also ask you the notion of this fallacy, that this is an attempt to deplatform an act? It's not about deplatforming, it's a simple matter of, have you broken the law or not?
Exactly. I mean, they talk about, political views. Well, if something crosses the threshold of terrorism legislation, you're no longer talking about censoring political views, you're talking about making sure that people can't incite terrorism. But I suppose their point would be that the political view of this band is support for Palestinians. And I would really challenge anyone who can praise Hamas in that way. What is pro-Palestinian about that? Maybe they don't care about the murder of Israeli people by Hamas, but Hamas is guilty of killing members of its own people who disagree with them, of killing their political opposition, of killing people who they accuse of being informants, of stealing, humanitarian supplies that was sent to the people of Gaza, and of using their own people as human shields in defence of their military and terrorist apparatus. That's not a very pro-Palestinian thing to do, and yet these people apparently have praised Hamas.
And let's be absolutely clear, Tom, you're allowed to be supportive of Palestine. It happened every Saturday on Britain's streets. But if you say up Hamas and up Hezbollah, that's not supporting Palestine, it's supporting a prescribed terrorist organisation. You're perfectly clear and legible to challenge the government of power or even the government of opposition. We live in a free democracy, but if you start saying the only Tory is a dead Tory and kill your local MP, that's not censorship, it's breaching the accepted rules of freedom of speech within the United Kingdom.
Exactly, and I think that the question here is about the consistency with which the law is upheld across our country, because when there have been neo-Nazi organisations, they've rightly been shut down, national action was prescribed and people were sent to prison. Now, are we going to see, when it's the extreme left, when left-wing extremism is proliferating, are we going to see the same measures taken against them? And I think that's also the point I was making about Islamic State or Al-Qaeda. If people invite support for those organisations, then there have been prosecutions. It ought to be the same with Hamas. There's no difference in the law between different prescribed organisations. All organisations are equally as prescribed, and so the law must be applied equally in this case.
And Tom, do you think this collection of lovies would be quite supportive of an act if they were supporting a right-wing prescribed terrorist organisation, if they were calling for the death of Labour MPs, calling for the death of Liberal Democrats? Do you think they'd be quite supportive then?
No, and I think it's interesting because Hamas, of course, is an Islamist organisation that subjects its people to live under an Islamist regime. And you had somebody on earlier talking about the issues around trans and trans rights. Well, I imagine many of those bands support trans and LGBT rights. What do they think trans and LGBT rights are like under Hamas? How is it progressive to praise Hamas? And all of those bands who align themselves in this way with defending this organisation, you have to ask them, do you not care about trans rights in Gaza? Do you not care about women's rights in Israel, the women who were raped as part of the October 7th attack?
Tom, can I ask you a pertinent question? Nothing happens in a vacuum. Do you think that people with these political viewpoints have been emboldened by what they might perceive to be as standoffish policing, as two-tier policing on the streets of London week after week after week? We saw a tolerance, almost an acceptance of these viewpoints, and here we are, it precipitates itself as something like this. Do you think this has been fuelled by the fact that the public perceives there to be two-tier justice in Britain?
Well, I'm sure that when the people said the things they're alleged to have said at these gigs, they didn't imagine that they were going to face the consequences of the law for that. Otherwise, I doubt they would have said it. So that is the atmosphere we've been operating in. I think it's interesting that they said these things not before the atrocities committed by Hamas, but since then.
Yeah.
You would have thought that after seeing that, you wouldn't want to align yourself with supporting an organisation like that.
OK, Tom Wilson, Director of Policy of the Counter-Extremism Group. Thank you very much for coming on the show tonight. Excellent as ever. Thanks. Now, coming up next, the Metropolitan Police armed officer cleared of murdering Chris Cabba should face a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct, where he could face a sack for using excessive force. Is the police watchdog failing armed officers who are doing an extremely dangerous job? I'll speak to a former firearms officer next.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see cooler weather drift its way southwards during the next 24 hours. It's already been affecting Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day as a cold front has moved in from the Atlantic. And that cold front slowly trundles its way southwards across central parts of the UK through the evening. Always the chance of a shower or thunderstorm across parts of Mid Wales into the Midlands ahead of that cold front. And a marked temperature contrast overnight because of the cooler air arriving from the northwest, but the warmth remaining in the south. In some parts of southern and southeast England, temperatures remaining in the mid-teens, whilst further north across northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, we start the day with low to mid-single figures. Nevertheless, for many, it is a dry and bright start to the day. I think a bit more cloud there across southwest England, South Wales compared with the recent days, and always that chance of a shower continuing through Mid Wales and the Midlands. Northern England, Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland seeing plenty of bright weather first thing. Cloudier skies for northwest Scotland, and we've got these showers moving in from the northwest on a brisk breeze. That breeze making it feel cool through the day, with temperatures back towards average for the time of year. However, for much of England and Wales, after any early showers peter away, actually there's plenty of sunny spells once again. And it's still going to feel relatively warm in the south and southeast. Temperatures into the mid-20s, even 27 Celsius in the far southeast, but back to the mid to high teens elsewhere across the UK. Patchy cloud here and there, not quite as widespread sunshine as we've seen so far this week. And then going into the bank holiday weekend, some heavy showers will affect southern counties of England through Saturday. There'll also be showers drifting in from the North Sea coast to affect the east and north of the UK. And that wind coming in from the North Sea is going to make it feel increasingly cold through Sunday and Monday, but actually there will still be some sunny spells.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Dordman. Loads of you have been getting in touch throughout the show so far. And the previous item on Kneecap, the Irish rap trio potentially facing counter-terror charges, has certainly got you going. Roy says this: I've never heard of Kneecap before and don't want to hear of them ever again. Roy, I wonder if actually the boys are thinking this is the best publicity they've ever had. It is rock and roll after all. Kevin says this: Kneecap being cancelled, suck it up. The left have been cancelling people for years. They don't like it up them. So Kevin is basically agreeing that Kneecap are in hot water. Ivor, however, disagrees. He says, Kneecap, you young boys are talking bleep. Hello. What about the actual dangerous stuff that's going on in this country? So Ivor saying basically they have a right of freedom of expression. Well, they do, Ivor, but the point we're trying to make is we already have established cases such as that of Lucy Connolly, who was jailed for an offensive Facebook post, and for 2 years, no less. So do we have uniformity of application of the law? And on that point, I've got a post here from X, Twitter, from an account, Remember Britain, saying Kneecap shouldn't be in jail and neither should Lucy Connolly and all the other political prisoners who were sent to prison for just hurty words. If Kneecap don't go to prison, then all of those political prisoners should be released. The key issue here is two-tiered justice. Well, thank you very much for getting in touch. And please keep them coming. This show depends on your input. Thank you very, very much. Now, moving on to our next story, and it's this. The Metropolitan Police armed officer cleared of murdering Chris Cabba should face a disciplinary hearing for gross misconduct, where he could face the sack for using excessive force, the police watchdog has decided. Now, reacting to the news, a colleague of the officer has said public safety will be put at risk because of this decision. Now, this comes as the Police Federation of England and Wales has said that voluntary resignations from the police force have risen 142% since 2018. Wow, 142%. And if this trend continues, then 10,000 officers will resign every single year by 2027. And that is a crisis waiting to happen. Well, joining me now is Tony Long, a former firearms officer, joining me on the show. Tony, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. Can I first get your reaction, Tony, to this astonishing situation where Chris Cabba was cleared of murder and yet now could still face his career to be ruined?
Well, I think we'll find it wasn't Chris Cabba that was cleared of murder. Chris Cabba was the...
Beg your pardon, my mistake, as you were.
But, yeah, I mean... I'd like to say I was horrified and surprised, and for a moment I was, and then I realised, of course, it's the IOPC that we're talking about, and nothing that they say surprises me. I think it's spiteful, I think it's cruel, I think it's malicious, and I think it's virtue signalling. You know, the reality is, if you were to speak to pretty much any police officer in the UK, I would actually say 100% of police officers, even the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, privately, and you know, without quoting him, he would tell you exactly what he thought of the IOPC, and it's exactly the same as what the ranks think. They're not fit for purpose. They're not trained investigators. They take way too long with their decision-making process. It puts police officers' lives on hold. But equally, if you were to speak to sections of the black community, they would tell you that they think the IOPC isn't fit for purpose because they're not supporting young black men that get shot by police officers. And so they're kind of piggy in the middle, and that doesn't mean that I've got any sympathy for them, but I haven't. But I think what this is, it's what should have happened is both the IOPC and the CPS should have walked away from Martin Blake's trial with a bloody nose and should have gone, right, well, we'll leave that exactly where it is, because, you know, the jury took 15 minutes to come to a decision as to Martin's innocence, and then wrote a letter as part of their result to the judge stating that they believed that neither the CPS or the IOPC should have brought this case to trial. So you would think that ordinary, sensible people in these organisations would go, enough, okay, let's just, we've come away from this, we've lost it, we're not. But they are so obsessed with convincing sections of the community that they are doing their job, that they will literally put police officers' lives on hold in order to prove their point.
And Tony, may I ask you, do you think they just have no understanding of the realities of what it's like? You're a former firearms officer yourself. You have microseconds to make a decision which can be life-changing for any one of a number of parties involved. You have to make that decision based on training, based on experience, and based on what you believe is the right thing to do at that moment in time. And it seems in the police force and indeed in our armed forces, that historic dredging up of those decisions seems to be tipping, some would say, in favour of the bad guys.
You know, literally, you know, you don't make the decision to pull the trigger a minute before you pull the trigger. You don't make it 2 seconds before you pull the trigger. You make it literally in a split second. And then, of course, lawyers, judges, you know, experts then have as long as they like to dwell on it, to look at it in slow motion, to play it back time after time after time. And, you know, I spoke to a really quite left-wing lawyer while we were waiting for the result of the Chris Cabba trial. and he's 30 years as a journalist. He writes for one of the more left-wing newspapers. He is quite openly anti-police, and he rang me up to ask for comments. And he admitted to me that he'd sat through numerous, cases involving the police at the Old Bailey and other courts around the country. And in his 30 years, this was the worst prosecution that he'd ever witnessed. So it really was that bad that it should never have gone to court in the first place. So now, to take a second bite of the cherry, I mean, I'll give you an example. I was acquitted of murder at the Old Bailey for shooting an armed suspect on the 3rd of July 2015. So 10 years ago. In that same year, a friend of mine who was still serving in the police, who was known by the codename Whiskey 80, got involved in a shooting under similar circumstances. It was a suspect in a car. It was part of a pre-planned operation because they believed that the persons in this stolen vehicle were going to free criminals on the way to the Old Bailey for armed offences. He's never been charged. Inquiries into his shooting have decided that he acted lawfully, but he is still awaiting 10 years later to sit through a misconduct trial. I mean, it's obscene. And what you've got to realise as well is that police officers' lives are on hold, not just insofar as they've got this hanging over their head and their families have got it hanging over their head, but police officers aren't well paid. One of the driving forces for officers doing these long observations and operations, as much as the professional side of it, it's also because you get paid for overtime. Well, if you're not getting paid overtime, you're on a flat rate and you've got a mortgage to pay and you've got a wife and children to support. It is cruel and unnecessary.
Tony Long, we have to leave it there. And when you lay it out like that in the cold light today, is there any wonder the police force could be losing 10,000 officers resigning every year by 2027? Thank you for joining us. That's the former Firearms officer, Tony Long. Pleasure to have your company. Now, we have a right of reply here. The director of the Independent Office for Police Conduct, Amanda Rowe, said this. This is the decision we have taken based on examining all the evidence. We appreciate that the Home Office is carrying out a review of the legal test for the use of force in misconduct cases. However, we must apply the law as it currently stands. Now, coming up next is over 50,000 students have written letters to war veterans on their wartime memories. We've got an astonishing story of the young connecting with World War II heroes. That's next.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, the UK has the warm, sunny weather. There's more rain to come in Spain and Portugal. Fine conditions across much of Italy. A few showers across the eastern Mediterranean. Generally dry for the Canaries, but not particularly warm yet. Wet and windy weather sweeping into Portugal and across mainland Spain, although many of the southern costas of Spain dry and sunny. Certainly plenty of sunshine for Italy, Sardinia and Corsica. A few showers over Cyprus and Turkey. Temperatures will be rising in the Canaries over the next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We have a royal invitation for you this Bank Holiday Monday.
It's VE Day. We're going to be here at Buckingham Palace from dawn till dusk and at street parties all across the country.
Join us for the pomp, the pageantry, the marches and the dramatic fly past.
A day when we can all feel proud to be British. VE Day all day Monday and throughout next week. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GBN Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Look at our beautiful VE Day 80th studio insignia, and it's to celebrate VE Day. And of course, we've got this beautiful story now because over 50,000 children are connected with World War II veterans ahead of VE Day. This magnificent project called VE Mail asks veterans to write letters to schools about their wartime memories. And the students then wrote back to the heroes, with schools hailing the project as a brilliant way to connect the young with some living history, and may I add, some absolute living legends. Well, join us now to reflect on the day itself and to talk about this magnificent initiative is the historian Martin Whittock. Martin, I saw this story today. It's by the Together Declaration, and it just absolutely warmed my cockles. We talk all the time, do we not, about young people forgetting their history, forgetting who the true heroes are. What a wonderful initiative VE Mail is.
Absolutely. I too was really warmed and heartened by this because it is encouraging young people in today's generation to connect with that extraordinary generation of people who gave their lives, sacrificed so much, struggled so much to defend democracy and freedom in the Second World War, 1939 to 1945. And I think it is such a powerful tool to get young people to recognise the amazing actions of these older people who are, of course, in much reducing numbers now. We really must treasure them for as long as we have them. These are the eyewitnesses to the most extraordinary struggle of the second half of the 20th century, which we are still living with the reverberations of now. You know, we talk about, you know, the post-war order coming to an end, etc., etc. But the whole point is the post-World War order was established by these men and women who gave their lives in this extraordinary way. And I think it's lovely that young people are being encouraged to A, appreciate them, B, recognise they're part of the community, such valuable people, and to make a vivid connection with them, personal connection. I praise it. I am thrilled by it. I think, as an educationalist, I think it's wonderful.
And some of the letters themselves are wonderful. Tom Jones, not that Tom Jones, I would say probably a bigger legend, 103-year-old Tom Jones said to children, "Victory protected democracy for our whole lifetime, and indeed that democracy being protected for those who live today." To be able to go to the streets and say unpleasant things, particularly perhaps about Palestine, I digress. Looking ahead to V-Day 80th itself, as you say, I think now there are only around about 200 veterans surviving. The day itself is an absolutely imperative moment to look back and to treasure, because this could be Martin Whittock, the last big get-together.
Yes, absolutely. The German unconditional surrender was signed at Reims in France to the Western forces on the 7th of May, but Soviet representatives were not there in numbers, so it had to be re-signed again, the definitive unconditional surrender in Berlin on the 8th of May, and it came into force at 23:01 hours that evening, which was 00:01 hours Moscow time, which is why we celebrate this event on the 8th of May, although technically signed on the 7th, and the Russians still celebrate it on the 9th of May because that's when it came into operation in Russia. But basically, 7, 8 or 9, it is a momentous event. 80 years since history was made, since Nazism and fascism was defeated. But we must remember that, as important as that was on the 8th of May, many servicemen and women were fighting and dying, civilians too, right the way through to VJ Day on the 15th of August, weeks and months later. So Hitler committed suicide on the 30th of April. We have this end of the Second World War in Europe, but not yet the end of the Second World War. VJ Day waiting until the 15th of August. So we must remember those veterans too. Their day has not yet come.
Martin Whittock, marvellous stuff, and of course, all eyes on Monday. GB News will be carrying unparalleled coverage of that historic moment. Thank you very much. Now, coming up next is State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. Matt, what's on your menu?
We've got a great show tonight, Martin. We've got the political director for Viktor Orban in Hungary coming on to tell us about what this big divide between Hungary and the European Union is really all about. We've got the US bashing the UK over gender care. The UK still doing these puberty blocker trials on children. The US saying that is absolutely bananas. We shouldn't be doing that. And we're looking at the issue of free speech in UK media around this Ipso judgment, the media regulator basically coming down hard on the Telegraph, saying it was being misleading in how it covered a particular story around Michael Gove and the allegations of links between the Muslim Brotherhood and the Muslim Association of Britain. We're going to be looking at that and whether actually this is about a bigger impact on free speech in the press.
Superb stuff. That's next. State of the Nation with Matt Goodwin. An action-packed menu. Thanks for joining me today on GB News. I'll be back tomorrow 3 till 6. But next is Matt Goodwin. But first, it's your weather. Have a fantastic evening.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We're going to see cooler weather drift its way southwards during the next 24 hours. It's already been affecting Scotland and Northern Ireland through the day as a cold front has moved in from the Atlantic. That cold front slowly trundles its way southwards across central parts of the UK through the evening. Always the chance of a shower or thunderstorm across parts of mid-Wales into the Midlands ahead of that cold front. And a marked temperature contrast overnight because of the cooler air arriving from the northwest, but the warmth remaining in the south. In some parts of southern and southeast England, temperatures remaining in the mid-teens, whilst further north across northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, we start the day with low to mid-single figures. Nevertheless, for many, it is a dry and bright start to the day. I think a bit more cloud there across southwest England, South Wales compared with the recent days, and always that chance of a shower continuing through mid-Wales and the Midlands. Northern England, Northern Ireland, southern and central Scotland seeing plenty of bright weather first thing. Cloudier skies for northwest Scotland, and we've got these showers moving in from the northwest on a brisk breeze. That breeze making it feel cool through the day, with temperatures back towards average for the time of year. However, for much of England and Wales, after any early showers peter away, actually there's plenty of sunny spells once again. And it's still going to feel relatively warm in the south and southeast. Temperatures into the mid-20s, even 27 Celsius in the far southeast, but back to the mid to high teens elsewhere across the UK. Patchy cloud here and there, not quite as widespread sunshine as we've seen so far this week. And then going into the bank holiday weekend, some heavy showers will affect southern counties of England through Saturday. There'll also be showers drifting in from the North Sea coast to affect the east and north of the UK. And that wind coming in from the North Sea is going to make it feel increasingly cold through Sunday and Monday, but actually there will still be some sunny spells.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a